Good morning, everybody. I would like to thank Raja Travel Corporation and congratulate Eileen Clemente, the CEO of Raja Travel, for organizing this event and for thinking about putting up a tourism knowledge center, which, as you saw earlier, holds a lot of data and information about our industry. And I'm also very privileged to be here in the same stage with the mayor of Iloilo City, Mayor Jerry Treñas, because I grew up in Iloilo and I served for 12 years at the Iloilo Economic Development Foundation, which I will explain to you in a while. And it serves like a model for how to attract investments to a city. So let me begin with my first slide. A city should have an environment that will make that city livable for its residents. So my first message really is that investors will not go to your city unless your city is livable and that the residents are happy residents in that city. And it should be an inclusive development where everyone is part of the development and feel that they are part of that development. You see in the slide, you have to have fresh air, clean air, water, excellent education, affordable housing for everybody. Next slide, please. Good transportation and connectivity. I will use Iloilo as an example. It's in the island of Panay and the infrastructure is very good. You can go around the island from Iloilo City as a base. In fact, there are many bicyclers that are doing that already. By air, Iloilo is also very well connected to Manila, Davao, Cebu, and other urban centers in the Philippines. Access to parks and green spaces for residents. We have a lot of plazas and open spaces. We have our river esplanade, which our mayor will show you later, which is the pride of Iloilo. But the next project of our mayor is to find space in the city where we can have a forest park with indigenous trees. And this is the mayor's dream project. So this is part of the access to parks and green spaces for residents. Next slide, please. Okay, local government should provide the right incentives, fiscal and non-fiscal incentives, for the private sector to invest in infrastructure and businesses that create jobs, that put up with certain amounts of capital. And for the non-fiscal incentives, we have a very facilitative environment where business permits and other kinds of permits are made easy to obtain. And if you are an investor in Iloilo City, aside from the city investment officer, there is a group like ours, the Iloilo Economic Development Foundation, that can hold your hand as an investor to facilitate your decision to put your investment in the city. Next slide. Local governments need to ensure that tourism and its future growth is managed and fully integrated into the city's plans and policies. So tourism is not just promotions, but that it is well planned and integrated into the overall plan of the city. Next. All right, so what makes a private sector want to invest in a city? This is just like a summary of what I said earlier. There should be easy access to the destination, connectivity within the destination, and you will see some slides later on in the mayor's presentation how this is made possible, that there is infrastructure, power, water, sewage treatment, solid waste disposal, telecoms. These days, nobody would really want to invest where there is very slow internet, right? So this is a big challenge. Attractions and activities which are organized. So for those tourism students, you know that there should be tour packages. In Iloilo, we have packages that promote cuisine because food in Iloilo is very, very delicious. We have packages that promote the culture and heritage of the city. We also have biking tours because we have bike lanes in the city, and a lot of many different themed circuits, which we are currently promoting. All right, next. There should be an availability, there should be a range of accommodations, not just 5-star or 4-star, but accommodations even for students like you. We lack youth hostels, for example. We need more of that, so more of the young people can travel at a very affordable rate. There's amenities and services which observe international standards, and very important, a skilled workforce. Iloilo has 8 universities, 19 colleges, and we graduate about 25,000 students a year. It is a university and college city, so the demographic is very young. And so we have the availability of people that can work in various industries. And I think that's one of our strengths. And I think maybe what I failed to include in this slide is that there should be peace and order. And there will be peace and order if the people are prosperous and if they are included in the development. Next. So it was mentioned earlier that there are a lot of stakeholders and actors that will make investments possible. And I have listed just a few. I hope you can see, those of you at the side. Local government, the private sector, big, small, and medium enterprises, chambers of commerce, universities, colleges, senior high schools, culture and arts community. That's very important that we have them there because culture is the soul of any place, and we should never forget. It should not just be physical development, but also social, cultural, and historical. And NGOs, especially environmental groups, because sustainability, environmental sustainability is a big issue. If there are too many tourists and they're not managed, your environment can suffer. Next slide. All right, so this is a drone perspective of a part of our city. You will see that the river is a prominent feature of our city, and Mayor Treñas will explain to you how we cleaned up the river, rehabilitated it, relocated the informal settlers, and now it has become a very beautiful river esplanade. All right, next slide. All right, so what was the vehicle that the city used to attract investments? Investments in total and including tourism investments. In 2007, during the mayorship of Mayor Treñas, he called Ilonggos in Manila, living in Manila, and I was one of them, to ask for help. He said, I can't do this by myself. We have to have a public-private sector partnership here. And I'd like the Ilonggos in Manila to come and give back to their city. So there were 4 or 5 of us from Manila that was invited to form the Iloilo Economic Development Foundation. Now maybe you'll ask, why not the Ilonggos locally? Well, they're there too. All the major organizations, business organizations in Iloilo are members of ILED. But I think at that time, Iloilo was just starting to wake up from long years of slumber. All right, it was kind of left behind by Cebu and Davao and other cities because it had stagnated. So I think the good mayor realized that maybe the people in Iloilo were a little bit sleepy at the time, and it needed Ilonggos in Manila to champion the cause of Iloilo. So that foundation was founded in 2007, and it's, as I said, it's a public-private partnership. Next slide. And the mandate is to provide an enabling environment to attract investments to Iloilo and to actively promote Iloilo as an investment destination. So next slide. So while ILED was doing its work, there were a lot of things that needed to be done. So the first issue that had to be addressed was power, because we had frequent brownouts, all right? And while the environmental groups were rallying against the coal-fired power plant, we had to make the hard decision to say yes to a coal-fired power plant. Otherwise, we would have no power. And without power, no investments would come in, okay? So I will leave the rest for the mayor to explain. But what we do as a foundation is we have held several investment forums to tell the whole country and even the foreign community that Iloilo is open for business. And that this was hosted, and these were some of the events that we hosted. The latest one was at the Intercontinental Hotel when it was still up and running. Next. We've had investment missions overseas to Hong Kong and to China, and the people that we met in Hong Kong and China have come to Iloilo also to take a look-see at what we have to offer. Next. Because power was and continues to be a big problem in Iloilo, not the generation, but the distribution of power, we funded at a very expensive cost an independent study on how power distribution in Iloilo can be improved, so that no one else could tell us what to do. We have a solid study to back us up. Okay, next. We maintain a website. It's now being upgraded so that it becomes a real economic portal with all the data that is needed so that investors can make the right decisions about investing in Iloilo. We hold economic briefings. There are many groups now because Iloilo has become so popular. There are so many groups that come to Iloilo, and if the city or the province investment officer is not available because there's so much demand on our time, on their time, ILED conducts the briefing. And that means we have to work closely together with the city and the province. And we help also upgrade the capabilities of the local investment officers. So we have to work in tandem. Next slide. In 2011, the Government Industry Academe Council was organized with the help of USAID, and it was first lodged in ILED, in our foundation. And what the GIA aims to do is to bridge the gap between the demand by business for workers and the supply. So the schools have to know what kind of courses have to be introduced, new courses, so that the graduates of those courses can be fed into the business. The skills mismatch issue has to be addressed. Now, this council has now a life of its own, but it was started in ILED, and it gives the investor a sense of comfort that there is dialogue between the government, the industry, and the academic sectors. Next. This is the new one. It's called the MICE Alliance. MICE, as tourism students, MICE stands for meetings, incentives, conventions, exhibitions, events. And this is a picture of our convention center. And the MICE Alliance was formed so that we can actively promote Iloilo as a convention and events destination. Again, it's all the stakeholders working together. And our good mayor just informed me this morning that as we speak, there is a workshop going on to involve even the lowest level, the barangay captains, the taxi drivers, and everyone involved to make them a part of our MICE strategy. Because if they don't feel that they are a part of it, they don't understand it, then they won't cooperate. See, so again, the teamwork and the concerted effort to make things happen is there. Next. So the success factors, and this is my last slide. We've been blessed because we've had political unity. Usually, if the mayor or the governor belong to different parties or the congressman, it's very hard to work in that environment. But we have been so blessed that for the last 12 years, there has been political unity in Iloilo. So we work together. And it has inspired the private sector to work with the government because of this unity. Public-private partnerships, I've talked about that. We have champions in the national level. Well, we have Senator Frank Drilon, who is Ilonggo, who works very hard to make sure that there are budgets for infrastructure in Iloilo. And Ilonggos in Manila have also been mobilized to help Iloilo. If you have a foundation like ILED, you have to have a high-caliber executive director, and we've had two, and they have been very, very good because they are the full-time executives. Those of us in the board just do the policy, but it's the executive director that implements. There's community participation, which I've talked about, and we have to put equal importance on the socio-cultural development of the city with the physical infrastructure. And the mayor's presentation will show what are some of these cultural, historical, and artistic efforts that we are doing in Iloilo together with the infrastructure. So I think that ends my presentation. Thank you, and I'll answer your questions.